Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach David Bartke here. It is Thursday, July the 13th, 2017. We're up to Chapter 6 of The Secret this week. This is The Secret to Relationships, and we've been moving right along, David. We're halfway through the book now.
Wow, amazing.
Incredible.
Wonderful.
It's amazing how fast it goes when you're doing it 1 week at a time. It doesn't seem like it would be, but it does.
Yes, and relationships, my goodness, that's a big hot button for so many people.
Yeah, you could probably do an entire book on that topic. But
I'm sure. Yeah.
But before we get into that, how's your week been?
It's been really good, and I wanted to share a story, a law of attraction win.
Oh, okay,
that
sure.
One of my clients reported, so I figured I would share it because it's always nice to share, like, when proof happens. Like, it's working.
It helps all of us, no doubt, yeah.
Yeah, so one of my clients is an actress on Broadway.
Oh, no kidding.
And, and she has been trying to manifest these two particular roles. And anyway, so she's doing all her coaching assignments and practicing the processes and all that kind of thing, keeping her vibration deliberately raised. And she just, by chance, happened to go into this coffee shop, and she was sitting there drinking her cappuccino, and she heard these three guys talking, and they were laughing, and she looked over, and she thought, wow, I think I recognize that guy. He looks like one of the directors that I auditioned for. So she thought, I'm going to seize the moment, and they all seem to be in a good mood, so I'll just kind of say, hey, are you so-and-so? So she did, and she went over to them, and she introduced herself, and they were really in the perfect mood, because they were very receptive. Good. And she said, are you so-and-so? Because I auditioned for you. And he goes, no, but I get that all the time, so I can understand why you thought that, but I'm not him. I'm this other person. And it turns out he was also a very well-known Broadway director.
No kidding.
Yeah, so they all hit it off, and he goes, I'm auditioning for a new show, and I think you could be good for one of the parts. And it was just like a law of attraction heaven moment for her, because by the end of it, they exchanged business cards, and they were looking forward to getting together, and she was just like, wow. And I just love that, because that's something that she created, and it's exactly what she was wanting to create.
It's a good illustration, too, because it shows us that it's not enough to put out to the universe, this is what I want. You have to do what Mike Dooley calls take the baby steps. And she took a very important baby step. There was an opportunity there. She could have shied away from that opportunity, but she didn't. She said, okay, there's an opportunity here. I'm just going to suck it up, and I'm going to go start a conversation. And it wasn't quite what she thought it was going to be anyway, but it turned out probably even better.
That's right. It could be even better. And I always tell people, you got to always celebrate the closeness of the match. So it wasn't the director you thought it was, but look, how amazing is it that it was still a Broadway director who's casting a show and all that wonderfulness that she was looking for. So that's the other reason why, like, we can't get caught up in how something's going to happen, because if you're just open to it happening, I mean, look what happened for her. I mean, now, I'm sure every Broadway actor in New York City would have loved to have had that experience. Oh,
I'm sure, yeah. And I love your phrase, too, the closeness of the match. Is that what you said?
Yeah, celebrate the closeness of the match.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and you want to keep that high vibration about whatever it is, so that's another reason why it's important to do that,
Yeah, because just because something that happens to you isn't the perfect match to what you had in mind doesn't mean it's not on the same vibration level. It could be very similar vibration.
That's right. How do we know that this particular director may have the most amazing part for her?
You never know, yeah. In fact, you got to tell us the rest of the story when it happens. What happens when she actually does the audition and so forth.
Yes, I mean, so I don't think it was a coincidence that she happened to walk in. Out of all the places in New York, she happened to walk in to this one particular coffee shop, and they were there. I think it was total law of attraction.
All due respect to Humphrey Bogart, of all the gin joints in all the world.
Exactly. So I thought that was a great perfect example of a law of attraction experience, and we don't know how it's going to happen, but it happens.
That's right.
Know?
Yeah. That's the weird part. The law of attraction and the whole thing about attracting stuff, it's amazing how contorted and twisted the paths seem to go. You know,
Yep.
And you mentioned Broadway, you mentioned theater. Hollywood couldn't invent some of the paths that come up in real life. There's not a creative mind on the face of the earth that could come up with them because they're just so contorted.
Yes.
But they end up in wild places. It's amazing.
Yeah, so she was just like flying high from that experience.
I'm sure.
Which will only help more of those type of experience manifest for her.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I'm just
because
so happy for her that she got to experience that.
Oh, yeah, me too. And of course, that kind of thing is how you get that positive vortex going, right? You know, the upward spiral instead of the downward spiral. That's right. Like you're saying, once you get one, it starts to snowball over time, and you just have to, assuming you stay there, assuming you maintain your focus on that. And
then like another amazing part was that the director she thought it was, she had auditioned for a really big part that's coming up, and it wasn't him because, he's a good friend of mine. So like I'm sure now he can tell him like, guess who I met today?
That's right, yeah.
You know, and then it'll even remind him about her again, and so like who knows? This could just go in so many positive places for her.
It's
just
very
amazing.
possible.
Yeah.
Now, of course, she has to stay positive, even though she hasn't actually gotten where she wants to go yet. She has to stay in that positive vein and believe that she's going to get there. But she sounds like she has a good chance.
Yeah. So, thank you, Law of Attraction, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Universe.
Yes.
Now, of course, the law of attraction applies in every aspect of our life. And this week in The Secret, Chapter 6, we're looking at the secret to relationships. Well, actually, that is a form of relationship there. Not the kind that they're talking about in The Secret, perhaps, but that is a kind of relationship going on there.
That is true, yes.
Yeah. So, anyway, let's look at the chapter. It starts off with Marie Diamond, who's a Feng Shui consultant, who opens up the chapter, so to speak. And I'm going to read from it because she tells a pretty interesting story. And I think it's one that, not everybody's a painter necessarily in their spare time. So in that sense, it's a little bit obscure. But I think the overall sense of the story is one that anybody can identify with because it really illustrates very nicely how we tend to turn the law of attraction against ourselves and then what we can do to turn it around in our favor. Okay, so starting from the top here, Marie Diamond says, "The secret means that we are creators of our universe and that every wish that we want to create will manifest in our lives. Therefore, our wishes, thoughts, and feelings are very important because they will manifest. One day," she says, "I went into the home of an art director, a very famous film producer. In every corner, he had this beautiful image of a naked woman draped with a fabric, kind of turning away as if she were saying, 'I don't see you.' I said to him, 'I think you might have trouble in your romance.' And he said, 'Are you clairvoyant?' And she says, 'No, but look, in 7 places you have exactly that same woman.' He said, 'But I love that kind of painting. I painted it myself.' And I said, 'That's even worse because you put all your creation and creativity in it.' Now, he's a gorgeous-looking man with all these actresses around him because that's the work he does, and he doesn't have any romance. I asked him, 'What do you want?' He says, 'I want to date 3 women a week.' I said, 'Okay, paint it. Paint yourself with 3 women and hang it in every corner of your living space.' 6 months later," she writes, "I saw him and asked, 'How's your love life?' 'Great,' he says. 'Women call me. They want to date me.' 'Because that's your wish,' I said. He said, 'I feel great. I mean, for years I did not have a date, and now I have 3 dates a week. They're fighting over me.' 'Good for you,' I said. And then he told me, 'I really want to stabilize, though. I want marriage now. I want romance.' And I said, 'Well, then paint it.' He painted a beautiful romantic relationship, and a year later he got married, and he's very happy. This is because he put another wish out. He wished it in himself for years without it happening because his wish could not manifest. The outer level of himself, his house, was contradicting his wish all the time. So if you understand this knowledge, you just start playing with it." That's a pretty cool story that she tells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had it. When he saw it, it became his vision, which became his reality.
Now, of course, we're not all amateur painters, so painting isn't always an option, but it does illustrate how important the power of visualization is.
Yeah, I mean, why not? You could write it. You know, you could write you can write that and put that all over your house if you can't paint, just to kind of continuously remind yourself what you want.
Or if you're into vision boards, you can get a board and put up pictures of all the women that you want not faced away from you. Or if you're a woman looking for a man, the same thing. Put up pictures of a man. Or if you're same sex, do the same sex thing. Whatever way works for you,
Yes.
But that's a nice, simple demonstration of how the whole process works. Now, I don't know about you, David. In my life, I had kind of the experience that he had in the first 40 years of my life. And then I did something kind of unexpected. I gave up.
Oh, okay.
I said, I've been trying so hard to do this. I've been trying to find the right person. I just give up. To heck with it. I release it to the universe, which I should have done years ago. Within something like 6 months of doing that, I met my wife. And
wonderful.
We've been together now for going on 18 years. 18 years in September.
Yay.
Yeah, how about that?
Well, that's because when you gave up, you had very little resistance about it.
That's right.
You weren't focusing on it.
Now, I didn't know that at the time. I thought I was just giving up. But it worked out just fine anyway.
Yeah.
Fortunately, you don't actually have to understand that the law of attraction even works in order for it to work for you. Of course, it's helpful to know. It's helpful to understand what it's doing, but it does actually operate regardless of whether you know it.
Yep, it's always responding to us.
Yep.
So it is definitely better to know why and how so you can kind of control it more than it control you.
It's not surprising, though, that so many people do want help from the universe to find the right relationship and to improve the relationships that they have around them. I mean, if you look at just national statistics or even global statistics, the number of people in dysfunctional relationships is practically off the chart.
Oh, my goodness.
So, it's not surprising at all. I love one part of The Secret that you actually see it better in the movie than you get it in the book. The book does describe it, but seeing the visual of it makes all the difference in the world. There's the woman and the man who are fighting while Rhonda's talking over them, or while one of the speakers is talking over them, and you can just see the whole thing is just breaking up, and they've got all these visual effects to make it look like there's antagonism going on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And then they describe how instead of thinking about the other person in terms of the fight, the woman starts thinking about all the things she loves about the man, and all the reasons why she fell in love with him in the first place, and why she thought he was special, and so forth. And then they illustrate how it comes together positively, because now all of a sudden they're hugging, they're practically wrapped up around each other. Everything has gotten better simply because she put that out there. Well, that's an interesting precept for somebody like me who was seeing the movie for the first time. Probably the first thought that went through my head was, well, yeah, that's great if that works that way, but that's not the way real life works. And, of course, it is the way real life works. It's just that people don't work it right.
Yes. Yeah, because most people don't know to do that.
No, of course not. The idea of putting it out in your head and assuming that is somehow going to improve the relationship seems crazy.
Yeah.
It just seems crazy.
But by doing that, again, you're softening the resistance you have towards your partner, and by doing that, you're bringing each other closer.
Yes. Yeah, it's truly remarkable how consistent LOA is. I mean, it
is consistent.
The resistance thing it's always resistance. I mean, every single time we have trouble applying the LOA concept in our lives to our benefit, it's always resistance every single time.
Yeah, it's not LOA because that's consistent.
Yeah, right. The law of attraction is actually more consistent than we are.
Yeah, it's the law. It's like the law of gravity. You can drop a ball any time of the day; it's still going to go down. And that's how law of attraction is with responding to us. It's just the law. It's not going to falter. It's going to always be that way.
Right. Yeah. It will always be true that what we think about and focus on will tend to attract like things just like it.
Yes.
Or people just like it.
Mm-hmm.
Or experiences just like it. In fact, there's no end to the list.
What do you think about this? And maybe it'll be in this chapter. Because a lot of people call me and they want to attract a particular person.
A specific individual, not a type.
Yeah, that's a common thing. Like, they don't just want to attract anyone in general. There's a particular person that they know this is the one for me, and all that kind of stuff. And that's what they want. They just want to attract that one person.
Well, there are probably a lot of ways to respond to it, but how do you respond to it?
Well, I want to get your opinion before I tell you how I respond. Do you think that's possible?
Is it possible to do? Sure, it's possible to do. Is it going to be easy to do for somebody who has not previously attracted them? Probably not, because they have a lot of changing they have to do. They have to change their behavior in some way, and that's always a little bit tricky. So at that point, the real question is, how much work are they willing to do on themselves in order to attract that person?
Yeah. Well, first, of course, I asked, if there's any history between them, or have they ever tried to date and all that kind of thing.
Right.
But in general, I tell people, look, it's possible you can attract that particular person, but are you also willing to accept that it's possible that maybe when you start really focusing on what you want in the law of attraction way, that there's someone else you don't even know about yet who might be even a better match for you?
Yeah, that's a good point, because you could actually be lowering your standards without realizing it just because you're focusing on that one person. There could actually be somebody better than that out there for you, somebody who would put you over the moon, but because you've lowered your standards, you aren't even aware of it.
So I tell people, we can work on it, but just, keep in mind, as long as you're open to that, it might be this person that is the one that comes forth as who you attract, but it could also be someone else that you don't know about yet who's even a better match for you.
The other thing that I think that goes along with that is I think you have to be willing to recognize that just because you have visualized a certain person and you even know who that person is, doesn't mean that your image of that person matches necessarily who they are.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And if there is a mismatch going on there, that's going to make it harder to attract them.
Yes. When you're a vibrational match to someone, then you're a vibrational match. So it might be this person that you claim is the one it has to be, or it might be someone else,
It could be someone else. And more importantly, from the point of view of what I was trying to express for my point, it could be that what you think this person isn't really what they are.
Mm-hmm.
We're all really good at creating imaginary versions of people that we know that are idealized in certain ways, and the idealizations often aren't a good match at all. So we have to be willing to let go of that, and I think probably that's the best argument I know of for accepting people as they are rather than as you want them to be. I mean, don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're not accepting people the way they are, we're constantly trying to chase after an image that we probably won't ever find because it's idealized.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. That's true. So I prefer to work with people that are at least a little open to, okay, I understand. Maybe I will attract someone even better that I don't even know about yet.
Yeah.
But so to put all your eggs in one basket with it has to only be this person, then to me there's a lot of resistance there with that.
There's also the fact that if we are visualizing it a certain way and insisting on it a certain way, and this is kind of what you're pointing to, we don't allow other ways to come in. So, for instance, here in this chapter, they tell a story. I think it's Mike Dooley who tells the story. He describes how there was, let's see if I can find, here it is. It's a story of a woman who wanted to attract her perfect partner into her life. Well, there it is. She had done all the right things. She had got clear about what she wanted him to be like, made a detailed list of all of his qualities, and visualized him in her life. And despite doing all these things, there was no sign of him. And then one day as she arrived home and was parking her car in the middle of her garage, she gasped as she realized that her actions were contradicting what she wanted. If her car was in the middle of the garage, there was no room for her perfect partner's car. Her actions were powerfully saying to the universe that she did not believe she was going to receive what she had asked for. So she immediately cleaned up her garage and parked her car to one side, leaving space for her perfect partner's car on the other shad. She then went into her bedroom and opened her wardrobe, which was jammed full of clothes. There was no room for her perfect partner's clothes, so she moved some of her clothes to make space. She had also been sleeping in the middle of her bed, and so she began sleeping on her side, leaving space for her partner. And she tells the story of how she ends up finding her perfect partner. And
Yes.
and what I take from all that is it isn't so much that she did those actions, it was that she recognized that there were various ways she was contradicting herself with her innermost thoughts. That's the real lesson in this.
And by doing that, I think it helped put her in the vibration of being with someone.
Yes.
Like I went many years ago. You know who Della Reese is?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I went to one of her lectures, and she did something similar. When she was ready to meet someone special, she started setting the table for two. And she started putting a pillow on the other side of the bed for him.
Right.
And she started, like, similar to this story, and he did show up.
And
he did eventually show up.
I'm sure she recognized that it wasn't the putting the pillow there that did it. It was putting the pillow there or doing all those things helped her change her mindset.
Yes.
So that when her mindset changed, then she could attract her partner into her life.
And also it makes it feel more real.
Yes.
And if that's vibrationally important, the more real it feels, the more you're going to expect it.
That's right.
But I always loved that she set the table for two and did all these things for two.
Yeah.
Even though there wasn't two yet.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good trick to do. It's not even a trick. It's a way of changing your mindset, a way of changing your way of thinking about what goes on in your own life.
Yes.
That's one thing that really comes out over and over again as a major theme from all of the gurus of the law of attraction. The idea that you want to change your mindset, you want to change your way of thinking, and you want to, in the process of, here we go back to that word resistance, we want to, in the process, remove the resistances we put in the way by insisting that X result has to be a certain way.
Yes. And that's important to realize, changing your mindset, because if someone's setting the table for two, but it's putting them more in a like, oh, yeah, right, when is this person going to show up? And that's not a good exercise for that person.
Right.
But if you can do it with the exciting part about it, like, oh, I'm setting the table for two, it's going to be so nice when he or she shows up, and you do it from that perspective, then you're inviting it in. But if it's causing you resistance, then I would say no.
So really the thing to monitor is how you're feeling about the thing that you're pretending, the thing that you're imagining.
Yeah.
How is that experience?
The vibration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that experience makes all the difference in the world, even though it's not a real experience. We are so used to living in the now, in the is, or even in the future or in the past. We are so used to the idea that what is what is, and that's all there is to it.
Yes.
And, of course, that is the one thing we have to turn around in our minds, or else we won't attract anything that we want.
That's right. Like, even before, when you mentioned the word vision board, well, vision boards are also similar. Someone can have a vision board, and when they look at it, it just reminds them, like, that they don't have the this and the that.
Which means it's actually working against them.
Right, it puts them in a lower vibration.
That's
so that's why I always tell people, you have to be careful with vision boards. Like, if you could look at it in the way that it's going to serve you, then yes, that's great. But if you're looking at it and getting upset by it because those things haven't manifested yet, then it's doing you more harm than good.
And that's really true for any of these little techniques. They have to be working in your favor. They have to be something that you're feeling good about. If you're trying a technique or an exercise or whatever, and you find yourself not feeling good about it, change the exercise.
Yeah.
It's not the right one for you.
And sometimes if someone's just starting with this, then sometimes it just takes practice. And eventually, if you stick with a certain process, you will start feeling it the way it's meant to be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know for myself, just learning how to change my own mood was like that. Because I had to overcome the belief that I really couldn't change my mood, that my mood, my emotional feeling at any given moment in time was subject entirely to what was going on around me in the physical world.
Yeah.
And it takes when you're stuck in that place, it can take a while to climb out of it.
It can.
So you have to just kind of be persistent and just keep trying. You know, I tried and I couldn't do it, and then I tried again to change it in my mind, and I couldn't do it, and then I did it successfully for 1 second, and then I did it successfully for 2 seconds, and then one day I even expanded to 5 seconds. And just,
that's right. And that's
just
a big deal.
one little step at a time like that, you can actually make a change like that. But there are situations like the one that I just described, where it takes a while and you have to kind of work at it, even against all the failures. Be persistent.
Yeah, even with relationships, like a lot of people too, they keep attracting the same kind of person.
Yeah.
That isn't good for them. Like they keep attracting the guy who walks out on them after 6 months, or they keep attracting the one that seems nice, and then once they get to know them more, they're not. So it's interesting, too, that people can attract the same type of person because that's what they keep focusing on.
Yeah, that's a very common phenomenon. I would imagine that the vast majority of people who have had failed relationships and are still looking probably have some aspect of that going on in their psychology.
Yeah,
I would think so. The other thing that, there was a story that Joel told one time that is kind of a really different take on this whole issue of getting stuck about a certain person. This was a client of his who came in the door. She was a new client, and she started telling the story about how her abusive boyfriend had left her 2 years ago. And the rest of the conversation for the next 45 minutes was all the different ways that her ex-boyfriend had been bad to her. And after a while, Joel realized what was going on, and he just started to count. And after he got up to about 45 or 50, he stopped her. He said, "Do you realize that you've been telling me about your boyfriend for an hour, and you have on 46 different occasions told me all the different ways that he is continuing to ruin your life?"
Oh, my God, yes.
And so I have a question for you.
That's what she's focusing on, yes.
Yeah, and so he said, "I have a question for you." I don't remember the exact question, but it was something to the effect of, what's it going to take for you to stop paying attention to him and take your life back and stop giving him all that power? Mm-hmm. That's not exactly how he phrased it, but that was the meaning behind it. And the moment he said it, she stood up in a fury and just pounced out of the room, just stomped her way out of the room, saying, I'm never coming back again.
Oh, my God.
She just, because it just hit her right where she lived. She couldn't possibly face up to that, right? Yeah. A couple days later, he gets a phone call from her. He thought she was gone. He thought, well, that's an ex-client. Forget that one. But no, she called back after she had calmed down a bit, a couple days later, and she said, "You know what? You were right. And I didn't want to hear it, but you were right. Mm-hmm. But I don't know what to do about it."
Yes.
And so he said, "Okay, here's what you do about it. You have some friends you told me about, right? You're still friends with them?" Yes, I am. "Okay. I just want you to call your friends up, tell them what happened, and say, I just need to get out. I need to go out on the town. Will you go out on the town with me? I just need to have a good night."
Yeah.
And so she said, "Okay, I'll do that." She called him up, and this was a Friday, so perfect night to go out, right? Friday night they went out. Saturday, she calls him in the morning and says, "I just had the best night of my life." Just the act of acknowledging that her 2-year past idiot of a boyfriend was still controlling her life and that she didn't have to let him control it anymore, just acknowledging that freed her up enough, allowed her to release that resistance to the point where she could actually go out and have the best time she'd had in years.
Wow.
I mean, how is that for a turnaround?
Yes.
That's a pretty cool one.
Yeah, and sometimes people are with someone. This is like a story that I had with a client. So she was dating this guy, and she had to be with this one. It had to only be him.
Right.
So I said, to get her to realize what she wants, how she wants him to be more like, I asked her, make a list of all the things he does that bothers you, that you don't like. Mm-hmm. So she made such a long list of all the things that bother him that she doesn't like. By the end of it, she was like, "I don't think he's the one for me." and we both just were laughing for like 5 minutes because she went on about how this is the one for her, and then after she made this list of what a not great person he was, she was like, "Wow,
yeah,
I didn't realize there was so much about him I didn't like."
It shows how easy it is for us to idealize people. We can eliminate all kinds of real-world evidence from our idealized image and not realize it.
Yeah, it was just someone that was giving her attention, so someone was interested in her, and she didn't realize that until that moment, that kind of was enough for her. Like, she didn't realize, wait a minute, but I can have more than just someone who's interested in me.
Yeah.
And then obviously, when we stopped laughing, we went through that whole thing, and she crossed out each one of those things and put what she really wants in someone, which was the opposite of all those things on her list. And she was so that was interesting because it kind of worked in reverse for her. Here she thought it had to be him, and then after she made all the qualities that she didn't like about him for the purpose of making a list of what she did, how she did want him to be like, she was like, oh, wow, he's not the one for me. Mm-hmm. So it's like, sometimes you think you want someone, and after you are guided in a certain way, you realize, wait a minute, no, this isn't who I want. I just like the attention, but who I want is someone with these good qualities.
Yes. Marcy Shimoff makes a good presentation to kind of expand on that idea in this chapter. She writes, in relationships, we're so used to complaining about other people. For instance, she writes, my coworkers are so lazy, my husband makes me so mad, my children are so difficult. It's always focusing on the other person. But for relationships to really work, we need to focus on what we appreciate about the other person, not what we're complaining about. When we're complaining about those things, we're only getting more of those things. Mm-hmm. Even if you're having a really hard time in a relationship, and things aren't working, you're not getting along, and someone's in your face, you can still turn that relationship around. Take a piece of paper, and for the next 30 days, sit down and write all the things that you appreciate about that person.
Yeah.
Think about all the reasons that you love them. You appreciate their sense of humor. You appreciate how supportive they are. And then you find that is when you are focusing and appreciating and acknowledging their strengths, that's when you get more of that stuff, and the problems start to fade away. So it's the flip side of the exact thing you were talking about.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
You can apply the same thing either way. You can either focus on all the things that you don't like about the person so you can give yourself an honest reevaluation. Do I really want that person? Or if it's a situation where you like the person, you want to keep them, but the relationship just isn't working, you start focusing on what you like about them to turn your own mindset around that way.
That's right.
What great control that is. I mean, we really have all the control we want over who we're going to be in a relationship with just by changing our mindsets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's rather encouraging, I think.
Yeah.
Now, Lisa Nichols goes on and follows up by saying, oftentimes you give others the opportunity to create your happiness, and many times they fail to create it the way you want it. Why? Because only one person can be in charge of your joy, of your bliss, and that's you. So even your parent, your child, or your spouse, they do not have the control to create your happiness. They simply have the opportunity to share in your happiness. Your joy lies within you. So, once again, more evidence that we have the control. Not only do we have the control to decide what we like about somebody, not only do we have the control to decide what we don't like about somebody, we also have the control to decide whether we're going to be happy with that person or without that person.
That's right.
How much more freedom do we want?
Well, I always think and tell people it's so much better when your happiness isn't revolving around circumstantial things.
Yes.
I mean, of course, something could happen that in the moment makes you happy, and of course that's wonderful, but don't you want to just take control and be happy in general so it's not circumstantial, And don't you want to have a relationship that's a real relationship? By that, I mean a relationship. Well, I look at the root of the word relationship. The root of the word relationship is relate. Mm-hmm. Relate is talking, it's speaking, it's exchanging ideas, it's conversing. Don't you actually want to have a relationship where just conversing with your partner is the most comfortable thing in the world? Yes. That's what I wanted. That's what I have, fortunately. I'm very pleased. My wife and I have a wonderful relationship. Truly a relationship where we can talk about anything easily without strain. And that's so important, not just for having a happy relationship, but when either one of us or both of us run into difficulties, run into stuff in our lives that's giving us a hard time, that relationship makes it so much easier for us to help the other person. Not by fixing them, not by somehow doing it for them, but simply helping them through it so they can change their own mindsets.
That, to me, is what a relationship is really all about.
Yes, and I also think, too, a good thing to do, too, is think about what is the relationship you have with yourself.
Yes.
Because a lot of times the relationship you have with yourself is similar to the relationship you have with your partner. So, like, if you're someone who's not nurturing to yourself and good to yourself, you might have that same kind of relationship with your partner. So that's also important to look at. Like,
it's almost a sure thing. I mean, if you're not being good to yourself, you're not going to be good to your partner. It's almost impossible to do one and not the other.
Yeah. So, like, look within yourself. Where could you have a better relationship with yourself, and think of those things. That will also help your relationship with your partner or future partner.
Yes, it helps you attract that future partner too.
Yeah,
because the more nice you are to yourself, the more gentle you are with yourself, the more understanding you are of yourself, then therefore the more gentle and nice and understanding you are going to be of other people, and that's going to draw in the kind of person you're looking for.
That's right.
The only kind of person this is not going to work really nicely for is a masochist or a sadist.
Yeah.
And we're not talking to them anyway.
No.
I don't think they're tuned into the show. But if they are, we invite them to change their way of thinking.
Yes, for sure. But you got to look at yourself too, in terms of relationships.
Meaning what?
And once like we just said, look, turn to yourself and ask yourself, do I have a good relationship with myself? Am I good to myself? Am I kind to myself? Am I making healthy decisions and healthy choices and all that kind of wonderfulness? And if you think you can improve that, then take action to improve how you are with yourself, and that will help with your relationship and any future relationships you have.
That's actually one of the subchapters of this chapter on the secret to relationships. Your job is you is what the name of the subchapter is.
Ooh, perfect, yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, because that is our number one job in life. Our number one job is making ourselves the better us we can be.
That's right.
And doing that every single day of our lives. And we do that. How do we do that? What's the best? Like, if you approach that in your own life, how do you try to make yourself the better you?
Well, from a law of attraction point of view, I always strive to keep myself at the highest vibration I can.
Okay. So that's one.
And so, and that doesn't mean, like, if you're thinking of like a 1 to 10 scale, like if you're at a 4 or a 5, even getting yourself to a 6 or a 7 is great.
Okay.
It doesn't mean if you don't get yourself to a 10 you failed.
Yes,
no.
Right.
You can't always get from here to there. You have to gradually get up there.
Yeah. Well, especially when you're in the early stages of learning how to change how you feel without depending on the universe surrounding you to do the changing for you. Because moving from 1 to 2 can be a major move. Trying to jump from 0 to 10 is probably not in your best interest.
Right, it's probably not realistic.
No, probably not.
Just be happy with getting from a 0 to a 1 to a 2 to a 3, etc. Because that's what it's about. So I think that's one of the best ways you can take care of yourself from a vibrational point of view.
My goal is to improve every day, not to be perfect every day. Because if I improve, I'm moving closer and closer to perfection. But the best thing is I'm actually improving. I'm feeling better. Every single day I'm a little bit better than the last day because I improved. So who cares if I reach perfection? That's almost irrelevant at this point. I'm feeling better. That's the best part.
I don't even know what perfection is anyway, but whatever.
I'm not sure we can even get there.
Yeah.
You can't get there from here.
But if we hope that we all want to be in a great relationship, so, I guess there's some certain parts of relationships that are the same for everybody, then everyone has other areas they like. I always assume we all want someone who's kind and honest and someone who we're attracted to and that's romantic and all, those good things.
Well, I would say different people have different perceptions of what that amounts to. For instance, somebody who is type A personality and very aggressive and so forth would probably find somebody else who is, in a sense, a mirror of that, somebody who is also type A and aggressive. They probably find that person to be kind because that's kind for them. So it's a subjective thing. It's based on what does kind mean to you? What does feeling good mean to you? What does positive mean to you? I guess that's the way that the sadist can actually make out. He considers sadism to be positive. But as far as I'm concerned, that just means he needs a good, sitting with a psychotherapist for a few sessions. But I guess seriously, the same principle applies there, because that's one of the key teachings that comes through when you talk to the big gurus or listen to what they have to say or whatever. That we are all part of the same spirit. We are all part of the same substance of existence, and we're all in this together. And that can be a bit unnerving when you think of us being in the same existence as, say, Adolf Hitler. How can Adolf Hitler be part of the same existence? That's pretty, dramatic, at the very least, and unnerving and disquieting. But we all are part of the same thing. The thing that I found that makes it easier for me to come to grips with that part of it is to recognize that every single one of us is responsible for our own happiness. So even if there are Adolf Hitlers out there, that's really not relevant to your own happiness. It's relevant to theirs, but not to yours. We are all in control of what makes us happy. We are in control of what we can do to change our happiness levels. We are in control of how we are going to decide whether we're going to relate with somebody, how we're going to relate to somebody, what kind of relationship we're going to have with them. We're empowered with all of these things. So,
sometimes people forget that. People forget about being happy. Or like a lot of times they'll say, well, what are you doing this weekend to have fun, or the next few days to have fun? And they're like, have fun? Oh, my God, I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Yeah, right, yeah. Well, it just shows how much we need to refocus on what it is we want and not what we don't want. The funny thing, too, is the more we focus on what we want, the more the really bad people go away.
Yes.
They just
you start
disappear.
becoming a different vibrational match. Yes.
Yeah. It's like you can't even see them anymore.
Yeah, and you're not willing to be around so many low vibration people. Once you experience what it feels like to deliberately keep yourself at a better raised vibration, then you don't want to be around people that are lower vibration. You just don't.
Yeah, that's true. And if the whole concept of vibration kind of throws you off, you don't even have to think about it that way. You can think about it in terms of what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah.
So if you're constantly in a place where you're focusing on what you like and you're thinking about what you like and you're going out and doing things and you're always working on trying to find things that you like doing and not worrying about the stuff you don't like, what happens over time is your mind, your brain actually starts filtering out the stuff that you don't like and stops showing it to you. The analogy that I love is the story that, I don't know if it's actually true, but it's certainly a nice illustration of the first Native Americans who saw the first European ships. And I think this is actually in the Caribbean, in Haiti or somewhere around there. When the first ships showed up on the horizon on the water, the natives couldn't see them.
Wow.
They couldn't see them because ships were not a part of their experience. They had never heard of the concept of a ship. So even though they were looking out on the horizon, according to the story, they were unable to see the ships. It took the medicine man, or whatever the equivalent was, the spiritual leader, to see the ship. And then help his fellow islanders or whatever to recognize there were ships out there. Well, that is a great. I don't know if it's actually a true story, but regardless of whether it's true or not, it's a great illustration. It's a great way of illustrating the fact that our brains can be programmed to not notice certain things and to notice other certain things simply because we focus on those other certain things, the things that we're focusing on regularly. Just by focusing on them, we train our brains to always expect to see those kinds of things. And we also simultaneously end up training our brains by extension to not see other stuff.
But like even with getting back to relationships, like with friends, like because some people say, well, I have a friend who's very negative, and now that I've been deliberately trying to keep my thoughts in a better place, I'm noticing it even more. But like it doesn't mean you have to totally let go of the person, but maybe don't spend as much time with them, or if you're with them and they start bringing up something, complaining about something, then kind of gently change the subject,
Yeah, don't feed into it.
Yes.
Like you say, change the subject, turn it around to something else.
Like some people are just so toxic that maybe it is better just to kind of bye-bye, thank you, bye. But
I've done that a number of times.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to do that. But sometimes, we have friends that we've known for a long time, and then we start realizing, oh, God, they complain a lot, or this a lot. But it doesn't mean you have to totally leave them, but, just kind of set yourself up for success when you're around them.
It's about drawing boundaries and respecting the boundaries yourself. It isn't so much drawing the boundaries for them, it's drawing them for yourself.
Yes.
So that when a conversation is going a certain way and it's not a way that you like, you just refuse to cross the boundary. You refuse to go that way. You refuse to go along with it. And because you refuse to go along with it, well, what are you going to do now? Well, change the subject to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Change
the subject. Oh, I have to go to the bathroom, and then come back like 10 minutes later, and hopefully they're onto a different topic.
Yeah.
Or something.
The interesting thing that happens, too, is that if you try that with somebody who you have never tried it with before and you've had a long-term, long-standing relationship of some kind with them, friendship or whatever.
Right.
It's amazing how quickly you lose interest in the person.
Yeah, that can happen.
Because they stay stuck there, and you're no longer interested in being stuck there, and all of a sudden, the reasons that you thought you had for being friends with this person are suddenly, like, melting away.
Yeah, it can change. That's true.
Yeah.
It can change.
And it's simply because your own perception is changing because you've changed your thinking.
Yes.
You've drawn that line in the sand and said, I just don't want to behave that way anymore. I don't want to talk that way. I don't want to feel that way. Sports fans, there's a great example of it. There are a lot of positive sports fans, but there are a whole lot more negative sports fans. I call them nega fans. And we all know who they are. They're the ones who are loud and screaming, and they're jumping up and down, setting their hair on fire and everything else. They're the ones who have all the opinions. They have the final word on their favorite team, and all the reasons why their favorite team is winning or losing. They know all of those answers, and they want to make sure everybody else knows those answers. And by the way, if you didn't hear the answer the first time, they'll make some up. They'll give you some more reasons why their team is failing, and they're going to just keep laying out all the reasons why their team is failing and how the general manager should be fired and the owner should sell the team, and it just goes on and on and on. How many people have known people like that who are sports fans? Well, I finally got to the point where I said, screw them. I don't want to be friends with them. I don't want to have anything to do with them. I started trying to just, change the subject. And I would change it to, for my favorite sports team, you can talk about, you and I are both fans of the same team, but you're a negative fan, I'm a positive fan. I like looking at the positive side of it. That's usually enough to end the relationship right there. But just in case it doesn't, I continue to just keep focusing on it, and I refuse to buy into it. And then a couple of things can happen. One thing that happens is they get really upset and they try to start a fight with you. Why aren't you agreeing with me on being so negative?
Yeah.
Then the second thing that can happen is they can decide to go away, and then you say, whoa, that was easy.
Well, and a lot of times people, once they start this kind of work and way of thinking, they do suddenly realize, wow, like, my circle of friends has really shrunk.
Yeah, it can happen.
But that's okay, though. Like, it's okay.
Actually, it's an improvement.
That's what I'm saying, right.
The circle may have shrunk, but the quality level improved.
Yes, that's right.
Just by taking away all the really lousy ones, you get the quality of the pool just improved by leaps and bounds.
Right, and then eventually, you will start meeting people that are more of a match to your new way of being now.
That's right. It does work that way.
That's who you really want in your friendship circle.
Well, when Joel had to move on, I had to find a new co-host. So what did I do? Did I reach out to all the people who, were poo-pooing law of attraction? No.
No.
That was not the way to do it.
Yeah.
I actually did an internet search, believe it or not. That's how I found you.
Mm-hmm. Yay.
I did an internet search, and I did like 2 or 3 searches. I'm actually pretty good at using search engines, so mine were pretty in-depth searches. And yours came up here's an example of expecting one thing and getting another. I was looking for people who were psychotherapists. I figured, Joel was a therapist. Let's see if we can find another psychotherapist. And you came up in the midst of a search for psychotherapists. How's that? That's pretty weird.
That is, yeah.
Of course, you're not. You're a life coach, which is, there's a certain similarity, I guess, but they're really quite different.
Yeah, it's different. Sometimes people need a coach more. Sometimes people need a therapist. It just depends what's going on.
Yeah. That's true. And both are legitimate. My wife was a therapist. Therapy is a very legitimate thing. But so is life coaching. Anyway, we've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
We should probably at least start trying to sum up the chapter. And, of course, as usual, Rhonda creates and includes at the end her secret summaries for the chapter. So let's go through the secret summaries.
Those,
and see how well we did. It's kind of hard to talk about the whole thing when we're doing these shows because we go off on these tangents, but that's okay. That's the fun part.
Yeah.
Anyway, she writes, when you want to attract a relationship, make sure your thoughts, words, actions, and surroundings don't contradict your desires, your surroundings. That's an interesting one. I mean, that ties into the whole thing about, sleeping on your side of the bed and so forth.
Yeah.
But surroundings, I mean, that is something we have control over, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
We have a lot of control over that. And so it's not just thoughts, words, and actions. We can actually change our environment and help encourage ourselves to change our thinking so that we attract what it is that we want.
Yes.
Very valuable point. Point 2, your job is you. Unless you fill yourself up first, you have nothing to give anybody else. Boy, is that
right.
true.
And that kind of goes back to when we were talking about you have to question your relationship with yourself.
Yes. Question it, and you have to look for the good side of yourself. We can get stuck in a mode of just being negative about ourselves. Lots of people do that. So, start with, if you're insisting on starting with what's not right about yourself, great, fine, just don't stay there.
Right, no, as long as you're using that as a tool to then improve it.
Yeah, looking for the positive side, because everybody's got a positive side.
Yes.
We can easily block ourselves from it, but the activity here, the exercise, is to reopen yourself up to those positives and remind yourself, oh, yeah, I'm actually a pretty good person. I'm a pretty smart guy. I get along with people pretty well, or, whatever it might be, So that's pretty important. Bullet point number 3, treat yourself with love and respect, and you will attract people who show you love and respect. That seems so obvious, doesn't it? And yet, how often do we not do that?
Yes.
I mean, it's all the time, it seems like, for so many of us.
But to me, that's also part of asking yourself, how is my relationship with myself?
Right.
And then if you, like, for example, say you realize, like, you're really harsh with yourself and critical, then realize that and say, well, how can I be less harsh and critical with myself? And then if you actually do that, then, yes, that also applies to you'll vibrationally draw someone in who also treats you kinder.
Yes.
And gentler. Yeah.
It's interesting how all of these little things we talk about, they're all actually exercises, aren't they, for how to change our own mindset, how to improve our vibration levels. Just the action of looking at the way that we talk to ourselves, think to ourselves, treat ourselves, think about ourselves, and recognizing the negative patterns in there, and then being willing to take each one of those negative patterns, find an alternative positive to replace it with, and then deliberately changing the thought process to that positive way of thinking about ourselves in each of those cases.
Yeah, and if you can do that, wow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you can do that. It's not an if. You can. It's just, the only if part is how long are you going to decide to mess around before you actually do it?
Yes. Hopefully not long.
Hopefully not long, no. Don't do as we say, not as we do. Now, bullet point number 4, this kind of ties in. When you feel bad about yourself, you block the love, and instead you attract more people and situations that will continue to make you feel bad about you. So if you like staying miserable, then keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
But if you don't like feeling miserable, this is probably a good time to change. Bullet point number 5, focus on the qualities you love about yourself, and the law of attraction will show you more great things about you. That's really true, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of that snowball effect. Once you think of a few, then a few more come in, and then a few more come in. And you're like, oh, wow.
And a lot of them are things that you hadn't thought about in a while.
That's right.
You explored them at some point, but then you just kind of dismissed them, and you hadn't thought about them in years. And in the process, you were basically cutting yourself off. Well, now you can rediscover them and cut yourself back in instead of cutting yourself off.
That's right.
Which is a good thing. And then the final bullet point, to make a relationship work, focus on what you appreciate about the other person and not your complaints. When you focus on the strengths, you will get more of them. Yes.
Because when people are in a relationship already and there's some tension, I always ask, well, what do you like about your partner?
That can be a challenge to answer sometimes, too.
Yeah, and they're like, what do you mean, what do I like? I'm like, what do you like about them? And then eventually they get into it, and they can just feel themselves softening, and it's just so wonderful.
You probably also get situations where you ask that client that question, and the client just sits there in silence because they haven't thought about it in so long they can't give you an answer.
Well, they can, but that can happen, but eventually they can. They will think of it.
Yes. Well, we all can. No matter how you look at it, whether it's you're starting in silence or you're starting with the complaints, one way or another, you're coming to the realization that you're not focusing on the right thing. So now here's how we can focus on the right thing. We can actually remember the good parts.
Yeah, and it's something new for a lot of people. They're like, "What do you mean you're asking me to think of what I like about them? I'm being focused on embroiled in the issues at hand. What do you want to?" So it's like, no, just trust us. What do you like about the person?
Or to look at it another way, so how's that been working out for you?
Right. If you want it to improve, I have to hear what you like about your partner.
Yeah.
All right. And then eventually they do, and they're like, okay, I get it. Yeah.
It's so amazing, though, how we can get stuck into these. They're really negative spirals. We just think of them as being stuck. Of being, we've trapped ourselves or something. And we're really good at it, We're annoyingly good at it. But just the exercise of changing for one moment our focus to something on the positive side. I've been trying that recently with somebody I know. He's actually somebody on my wife's gardening team. And he's been through some really difficult times. He'll tell you all about them, too. And he'll do it in a funny way. But I've been pointing out to him, just how contradictory and counterproductive the whole negative trip is. And I asked him at one point, so flip that around. Tell me what's the positive side of that. And he paused.
Right.
And he came up with an answer. I don't remember exactly what the topic was, so I can't tell you the specific story. But in general, the answer was he came up with a neutral. He didn't really come up with a positive. It wasn't the really bad negative. He came up with a neutral point.
Well, that's better.
It's an improvement. It's in the right direction. Yeah. Unfortunately, neutral is still a form of negative, but it's at least it's a less virulent form of negative. And I've actually gotten him to the point now where he said, well, first of all, he paid me a compliment. He said, "You're the most positive person I've ever met." I said, "Well, thank you. That's really cool. I appreciate that."
Yes, for sure.
That was really validation because I've been working on myself for so long. So to know that I've actually done it so well that people can see it, that feels good.
It's working.
It's working. I'm getting better and better at this stuff.
Yes.
And secondly, it also gave me the opportunity to show him an even better way to think about the thing he brought up. He came up with a neutral thing. I turned it into a super positive. He said, "Oh, wow, I never thought of it that way."
Wonderful, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
so
great.
It's like the old adage, we teach best what we most need to learn.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm doing with him. I'm teaching him what I most want to learn, what I'm most craving learning more and more about. Even though I've learned it to quite a large extent, I want to learn it even more.
Sure, sure. So. Absolutely.
Anyway, we're running out of time here, so before we lose our audience, we want to remind everybody, of course, you can always listen to us on PRN, but you can also find us at our website, loatoday.net. We can be found on Facebook. We're we're in the Apple iTunes Store. We are on YouTube. We're all over the place. And, David, you've got your website, too. How can they find you for life coaching?
Sure. If anybody wants more information about me or is thinking about law of attraction coaching, you can visit my site, lifecoachdavid.com. Very easy, lifecoachdavid.com, and you can find out more there.
Fantastic. David, it's been a pleasure as usual.
Same here. Well, it was great.
We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.